What's going on, YouTube? It's Big Brother 749 coming back at you with another video. I want to talk about something, just wondering about something. I was wondering, could the GOP, the Republican Party, ever win votes or gain more support just by telling their supporters the truth? Because for decades, it seems like the GOP's been having an extremely difficult time with telling the truth. They deny the facts as they continue to manipulate and fool their supporters with false informations and lies. And this party, if it's even a political party to begin with, would make false narratives in order to spark racial hate, to cause division, giving their racist white supremacist voters fired up, and just trying to divide the country, making fools out of their supporters. And the purpose of this video is for me to figure out whether or not the GOP Republican Party would gain more support and win more votes if they started telling the truth and started being more honest with their supporters. Now, I'm aware that tomorrow is Super Bowl Sunday, and at this game, there's going to be crowds of people, blacks and whites, cheering and chanting, enjoying the game with each other, laughing and having fun together. And while seeing stuff like that, it's going to make me think that this is what Trump is trying to break up. He's trying to break that up. He's trying to divide that because this is something that him and the GOP don't want to see. Because I think about the situation with Colin Kaepernick and how the GOP and their supporters wanted to run off at the mouth about NFL players peacefully protesting against police brutality. And because, they're trying to silence everyone, who disagrees with them by name calling. And I think about that. And the question is, can the GOP ever win votes just by telling the truth? And my answer to that is no, because it doesn't support their voters' narratives, and they will lose the majority of their voters. So, of course, they're not going to tell their supporters the truth because their voters don't want to believe the truth. And whenever someone who's not a Republican tries to tell them what's really going on, even if the truth has been filmed and recorded and it's been shown live on television all across the world, and documented and proven to where there's full proof and evidence that it's real, they still don't want to believe it. They want to call it fake news and believe the lies from their own party because it sounds good. Because this is a racist country and they want to believe things that fools them up, to where they're feeling like these false narratives given by the GOP confirms their beliefs, giving them reasons to divide, even if it's obviously not true. And really, the GOP can't tell the truth because they're the opposing party to the Democratic Party. And we have a two-party system that was designed for two different groups of people. And there was a time when both parties were concerned about all the same problems and had different ideas of solving them and addressing the same problems with different ideas. But nowadays, these conservatives deny these problems even exist because the Republican Party nowadays have become a party for a certain type of demographic with a Pacific mindset. Because I know the Democratic Party has told lies. It's flawed. Don't get me wrong. It's not perfect, but at least a little bit more genuine and don't condone wrong behavior like the Republican Party would. And some may say that the majority of black Democratic voters were the same way with Barack Obama as Trump supporters are with Trump. And yeah, that's true. I ain't going to front because the way a lot of these white Republican voters are now with Trump, a lot of black Democratic voters were the same way with Barack Obama, especially during his first term. It was like this brother could never do no wrong. But really, I think a lot of brothers and sisters just had unrealistic expectations from Obama, assuming just because he was our first black president, he was going to change the world, move mountains, do all sorts of miracles and unrealistic things just because he was a black president. Because there were blacks who actually thought that they were going to be living in royalty as kings and queens under Obama, and that Obama was going to do things such as legalize marijuana and give out reparations. And they got mad at Obama when Obama never promised or ever said he was going to do those things. But Obama was nowhere near as destructive as Trump is, and Biden and the Democratic Party knows that this COVID-19 pandemic exists, and the Republican Party knows that this COVID-19 pandemic exists. But as the opposing party, they feel like they're not supposed to say it to their supporters, and they want to tell them that it doesn't exist in order to appease their fan base. Because some of these false narratives and statements they be giving out just feel so, rehearsed and planned to where it's just obviously not true. But I'm aware that it's an attempt to start another war and to anger and infuriate their fan base, voters and supporters. Because the GOP and the Republican Party know the stuff they're saying aren't true. These are well-educated people. They're not stupid. Because a lot of them have already been vaccinated, but we're still giving out false medical information on COVID vaccine. but they still want to convince their supporters otherwise and not tell them the truth, since their purpose is to create more division. And by the Democratic Party, they could be a little bit more discreet with their racism, though they're supposed to be more accepting and help of minority voters. But the Republican Party know that they can go out and say racial things out in the open, out in public, showing their true colors. And that's done on purpose, I think, because they don't have to hide their racism. And it gets reported on the news, and the reason for that is to appease their fan base. And these Republican politicians know, what they're saying. These remarks didn't just slip out of their mouths. They know what they're posted on Twitter and social media, knowing that everyone in the whole wide world can see what they posted. And like I said, I'm hoping Trump doesn't win, this election in 2024, because Trump's going to divide the country. There's going to be so much racism back again. That's just like when Hitler came to power. He's talking about the Jews and this and that, and how the reason why, there were hard times in Germany, and he and his cronies, they blamed the Jews for everything, to where the German folks were starting to believe that shit, to where the Jews were persecuted by the Nazi party by the time Hitler came to power. But nothing was said or done about that, or nobody protested or anything. And it could happen again in this country. You get a man in there like Trump, and he'll tell these mofos what to do. And Whoopi Goldberg, by the way, didn't say anything wrong, by the way. They suspended her from The View a couple weeks ago for her remarks on the Holocaust. And I do feel that the Holocaust wasn't really about race, because they were all the same race. It was more about religion, while slavery was more about race. And as crazy as Trump is, I don't think he's as crazy as we think. I think Trump does the things he do, and says the things he says on purpose sometimes, because he wants to stay relevant. He wants to stay relevant so bad that he would even go so far to even say crazy pornographic shit about his own daughter if it kept him in the public eye. Just like when that freaking Mitch McConnell said that black people are allowed to vote just as good as Americans. That kind of made him sound like black people aren't Americans. He said African Americans are voting as Americans. What did he mean by that? African Americans voting as Americans. They are Americans. Why would he say that? I know he knows we're Americans too, but he said that intentionally because he's a freaking racist piece of shit. He's a racist, and he doesn't consider African Americans to be Americans, and neither does the GOP supporters. So that's how I know it's all a front for their supporters. They're showing their racism and giving out medical misinformation on purpose, and they put it out there in the open for a reason. And I'm sure even some of these Trump supporters may know that they're being lied to, but they're not aware and look past it and giving excuses for it. Because when Trump said that white folks weren't, allowed to get the COVID vaccine shot, I knew that was bullshit, because they can easily go find out for themselves, and they can call and set up an appointment or walk in and easily find out that the discrimination thing was a lie. That's why it's not being talked about anymore in the news. Because if anything, a lot of whites, it's not all, but a lot, and even some blacks, don't get me wrong, but more whites, especially Trump supporters, were actually discriminating themselves against the COVID-19 vaccine shot. Because Trump told them that they were being discriminated against, they'll still believe his lies, even though they had already refused to get vaccinated. In the lies about Black Lives Matter storming the Capitol, so Black Lives Matter and Democratic voters decided they were going to put on MAGA hats. And though the Black Lives Matter organization does have white protesters, but the majority of their protesters are black, and you didn't see a lot of blacks storming at the Capitol riot. And they want to say that they stormed the Capitol to break and destroy federal property, murder a few people, and yell and roar and scream all through the whole freaking building, all because Trump didn't win, and mad that a Democratic president from their own party won. And if it was them, then why do Trump want to pardon Black Lives Matter and the Democratic Party if he gets reelected? It doesn't make any sense, because it was nobody but these crazy right-wing extremists and Trump supporters. That's not right. And he wants to pardon them if he's reelected, and he said, but ain't that criminal? That's criminal. Those folks who attacked the Capitol, they were criminals. How are you going to pardon for criminals? And the majority of his supporters seem to think that they were Democrats. And do you think Trump will pardon Democratic voters, let alone black ones, if they storm the Capitol? Hell no. Because white supremacy is domestic terrorism, though they don't want to call it that. They want to say, let's take a brown person, for example, from Afghanistan and in Iraq, who's Muslim, and they call him a terrorist because they fear domestic terrorism, but they're really the domestic terrorists. And Trump is the guy who wants to run again, and win again. It's all for power. You know, he's racist, and who want to vote for a racist person besides other racist people? And the GOP knows the 2020 presidential election wasn't rigged or stolen. Biden won fair and square. Trump's own judges he picked himself for the Supreme Court has even said no proof, no evidence. So the GOP is going to tell their supporters what they want to hear instead of what they need to hear. When these statements are obviously false, they're not true. They know it's not true. It's been proven not to be true, but their supporters still believe it, and they're going to, you know, they're gullible and they're still making excuses because the GOP, you know, don't have a plan or no political end game. So of course they're going to do and say whatever's going to win them votes in order to stay relevant. And the GOP, they don't want to admit the truth because, you know, they will lose their supporters. So to win elections, they must tell lies and divide the country on the basis of race and religion. And they've restricted the freaking votes to get what they want because they know that if everybody's allowed to vote, the Democratic votes will always outnumber the Republican vote because Mitch McConnell has even admitted it. And they're trying to win in these manipulative ways, and that's all they care about, even though they don't have a platform right now. They just want to put Trump back in power, and that's the goal. No promises, no plans. They just want to win. And they just want to stay on top of America and continue to be a threat of our democracy. But that's all I want to say, folks. This is Big Brother 749 signing out. I'm out. Peace.